All right, hello guys. Today, kind of continuing on with that trophy recall series. I was missing out on a couple years because, as you know, I came in on August 2011, so I wasn't quite sure what was going on at all trophy wise. So to help fill in that gap, we got Roughdawg4. A little interview with him. He can kind of say what the onset of trophies was like because he was there from the beginning. And part of my early years was kind of catching up on all those games, so we can kind of see when they came out and what it was like when games didn't have trophies, like right when they got them, and all that stuff. So I don't know. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hey everybody, I'm Roughdawg4. I am the owner of PS3 Imports, and I've been trophy hunting for, God, what is it, like 11 years, 11 plus years right now, and currently I'm the number one trophy hunter in the world.
Yep, a lot of plats.
Yeah, too
As,
many.
as currently at 2,734. With oh, you're actually almost at your 100,000th trophy.
Yeah, I'm getting there. I would love to, I have a very high 99% average. I would love to have that rare 100% average that you have, but I have a few games that will elude me. That'll never happen, so.
You got any plans for 100,000?
100, oh man, I don't know.
Not even thinking about it yet.
Oh God, I mean, it
It
just feels like it's just a little bit ago that I did 90,000 with Doom. Like,
yeah,
so
but it's
you know,
trophies are just coming quick and rapid at this point, depending on what like all these games coming out for them, all these trophy games.
yeah, it's a
Yeah,
trophy
trophy
apocalypse.
apocalypse. So, kind of opposite of that, the early scenes of trophies, not so much the case, as you are very aware, I'm sure, where
Oh
it
yeah,
was plats typically length of them was like more like 10 to 12 hours, and
yeah,
anything other than that was like 100% or
yeah.
um
Seeing the games that were under 5 hours were extremely rare. I mean, when you had Terminator come out and it was like you could plat the game in like what, a few hours, that was just like unheard of at the time. And it's, there's a lot of things that you see as commonplace now that never happened back in the day. I mean, it's amazing. It's when you had like Linger in the Shadows. That was like one of the first quick and easy PS3 games where I forgot if you just watched the video or if you did some small interactions.
I think
I
it
don't know if
was
you
very minor interactions.
Yeah, and that was just like and that's what everyone played because they're like, oh my god, look, you could play this easy game for like 10, 15 minutes and get the 100%. And it was just unheard of for all the games. I mean, because the games that you were seeing added were like Stardust, and that Sonic collection like was one of another easy one, right?
That
Like that
that
was
Genesis one.
yeah, like so that was
Yeah,
like an easy one too. But there was very few far in between. And the really big one back in the day was Hannah Montana. Like that was always the one where you'd see like people would go through your list to see like, if you had that or not and
yeah.
they'd shit on you.
People would hide it and be embarrassed by it and
Yes.
stuff like that.
Yeah,
Um,
and for the longest time because there was just no game like that right at the time. Like you wouldn't see anything that would come out anything near that for years. So I mean, that was the one where it's like, did you end up playing that game? Kind of thing, and you just sit and stare at everyone. But it's amazing though, right? Like it's that you see. I mean, I know the big one. One of the first early, and this was very early on too, was what was it, Trine,
oh
and it
yeah,
was
that was like the
yeah,
first one you didn't have to finish.
yes, and that was a big deal because everyone was like, "Well, wait a second, you don't have to actually finish the game," and it was so weird, right? Because you kind of, some of us like felt incomplete afterwards, where it's like, wait, you could just quit halfway. Who would want to do that, right?
Yeah,
That's just
but
weird, and of course, that's commonplace now, right?
yeah, I mean, because that was trophies back in the day. It was do 100% of the game. Some of them was basically like do 300% of the game because you had to beat it on every difficulty. Some of them I think you even had to like get all the collectibles on every difficulty and stuff. Um, you had to, I mean, it was more so, uh, yeah, just adding more to the game. I kind of feel like nowadays a lot of it's kind of just get all the trophies and move on, and stuff like that. And
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
so, what was you're looking at your list? What were some of the first games you played with trophies?
Yeah, I was trying to look up to see what my first few plats were. I guess that Sonic Ultimate Collection was one of my first. I think Stardust was the very first game I started playing though, because when it first started, I think only 4 games had trophies, and it was Stardust. Oh God, I am drawing a blank on this. Because I don't think Linger in the Shadows came into later. Oh, that's a tough one. Yeah, I mean, but I remember Stardust was one of the few. Like, there was only 4 games at the start, and it was actually a really hard game to do, right? But it was just so cool because it was just one of the first ones. So you're like, let's do this. I know I did Grand Theft Auto pretty early on too. I love that game. Like that was an insane. That was one of the first ones I think that had the insane grind, right? Where you'd have to put in a ton of hours to get the platinum. Like it was just insane. That
Yeah, I mean that too. Trophies back in the day, there was a lot more grind related to them. I mean, you still got some grindy games now, but it was pretty much everything had a grind, really.
oh yeah,
If it was not something insane, it was at least like grind out killing 100 enemies and cloudy with meatballs or something like that. But yeah, it was definitely. I feel like the lists were a lot different back then. The whole scene of what made a plat and what made a trophy list was just a lot different.
well, it's cool, right? Because if you see when did I actually reach like level 100? Like it probably took me like what, like 6 or 7 years. And people now with all these easy games out, you could literally get to level 100 within a year. You
Oh,
know,
less
people.
than that.
Yeah,
Couple
I mean it's just
months.
yeah, I mean and but you're right though. Like all these plat times originally were like 10 or 20 hours. That's how every single game was, and that's where it's funny. Like you'll see people start climbing up the leaderboards, right? And they'll break into like say like the top 10. You know what I mean? And with top 20, 10 or 20 with just doing like those quick and easy games. But the problem is that I have the advantage of for like 2 to 4 years, right? I did nothing but these PS3 games that are 10 and 20 hours. And at some point, right, like these people have to make those titles up if you want
Yeah.
to be able to catch me, which is why no one ends up getting close, right? Because you have to play all those
Yeah,
games that
you
many
run out
years.
of the easy stuff. But it does also make it so that if you stop, um, there's just so much easy stuff that they overtake you really quick.
Oh, absolutely. Like if I stopped doing it, I would assume that people could probably pass you within a few months. You know what I mean? These are just the
Yeah,
crowd
I would
slows
think I
down a
would
bit.
plummet down pretty quick,
Yeah.
myself. Um, so what were some of the I know like they were still releasing games that didn't have trophies when games had trophies, right? So it was mostly um like when did it start occurring? Was it like after a year where everything was getting trophies? Cuz when I started, everything had trophies at that point. I
Yeah, it was weird. Like it was always one of those things where you're like, does this have trophies? You know what I mean? Because especially early on, and sometimes like games got patched in with trophies. Like I'm not 100% on this, but I believe Grand Theft Auto didn't get released with trophies. It got patched in with trophies.
I
So
think
there's a lot of
Uncharted, the first
Uncharted. Yeah,
Uncharted, yeah.
yeah, because there's always a lot of people where they'll try to report people for Uncharted, and it's like, yeah, but you could have played it before the game was released with trophies, and it always kind of screws it in. Like, so some of them, like, but probably only the big titles, right? Like patch stuff in. The small stuff probably didn't do anything.
Yeah,
But there was always that hit or miss, and one of the big ones was always I don't know if you played 50 Cent.
no.
Uh, so it was kind of like a shooting game. It was pretty cool, and I mean, especially if you like that kind of music, then you would really like it. But the funny thing is that you had to buy the Japan version because I believe the Japan version was the only one that patched in with trophies, and they didn't patch in the USA or Europe version. So if you did those versions, you couldn't get it with trophies. But if you got the Japan version, it did have trophies because it was after that cutoff. So it was just really funny, right? Like how some of this stuff worked out. So you always kind of had to try to make sure. And there's definitely some mistakes you would make along the way. You'd buy this game, and you go to play it, and you're like, dude, this doesn't even didn't have any trophies, and that's like it always kind of sucked. And sometimes like you felt like there was trophies that didn't come out after the cutoff because maybe they were in development beforehand. So it was always that weird thing. But by the time you came in, right, like they were more commonplace, and you didn't really have that issue.
Yeah, do you remember what year they kind of became commonplace? I mean, was it 2010? Was it 2011?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was like, was it by the end of the year? I know they gave them a grace period with developers because they started coming in, I believe, in February, right, of 2009.
Oh,
I think
so it
that's when
actually became mandatory at a point. Well, I mean, I guess it's mandatory now, so that makes sense.
they didn't. Yeah, it's mandatory now, but they didn't. Like at one point in the beginning, it was. I think in January, February 2009, I got that wrong. Is when I think they started becoming mandatory. So August 2008 is when they started getting patched in. Like that's when the game started coming out where they could have trophies or they couldn't. But they gave some time to the developers, right? Because they didn't want to just sit there and surprise them. Oh, hey, by the way, this needs to have trophies, right? So.
Well, I'm thinking to put. I don't. I mean, I don't know how much work it is to patch trophies in. I do feel like they probably took. I feel like they took more time and care of what kind of trophies they made back then. But I feel
Yeah.
like it probably isn't that hard. I mean, I really don't know. I don't patch trophies in or develop games, but I would assume it would be fairly simple to do.
I
Um,
think as long as you were able to trigger them to events, I feel like they would be simple to do, right? Like, like in Stardust when it had the trophies, right? Like you get a trophy for going past this timer. Like that feels like that should be pretty easy to, I feel like to code in. Like you said, I'm not a developer either, so I don't know. Maybe it is more triggered than others. I
yeah,
know that I've always heard that just to do patches, it does cost them money. So maybe certain companies, and that probably shows why when trophies became nameplates that they didn't patch in trophies. Besides like the Grand Theft Autos, the Uncharted's, right, that make enough money where they probably won the trophy. So no,
yeah.
it was kind of not done great because Sony has just never really cared about trophies. They only did trophies in response to Xbox, right, like to their achievement.
Yeah,
That's
I
the
mean,
only
from
real
what I
reason.
understand, Xbox cared a lot more about achievements.
Yes. Oh yeah.
I don't know about the scene now. I mean, heck, they're even sponsoring the high up people, like from almost the get go. Um,
Absolutely, right? Like you see them get stuff all the time. Like what was it? The number one guy got like a gold Xbox for life, right? Like that's I mean, when has Sony ever done anything for any of the trophy hunters here, right? They've just never really done anything. Which is, again, just shows that they just don't care. And I believe I thought like I heard like Xbox actually monitors their stuff, right? But again, Sony just doesn't care. So
yeah, I'm not too sure on the Xbox scene exactly. I just hear they get better treatment,
yeah,
in
no,
a way.
absolutely.
Um, so when trophies first started coming out, was it like right away you only would play things with trophies, or were you still playing other stuff at that point?
It wasn't right away. So I was still. I feel like I didn't really start hardcore until like I don't know, maybe a year in. I think it was just more like a novelty, like oh hey, it's cool because like me and you are the same when it comes to completionists, right? Like we like to complete a game, like that's and this is something I did even before trophies, right? Like I just like doing everything I could do in a game, and it was just kind of cool that these features just had a way of here's a way to track the scene. Here's a bunch of different things you could do in the game. And it was just at first it was kind of cool, right? Because it's like, oh wow, like play on this setting or go this far, and especially when it came to like say RPGs and stuff like that, it added some like level of elements that maybe I might not have considered before, and it just made the game to me like more fun, right?
Yeah,
It
because
just
I mean, pre trophies, I was always looking on like game facts and getting strategy guides and all this of how I can get all the items and unlock all the characters and all this stuff. And then yeah, like you were saying, trophies kind of made it feel like a complete thing, and um, I mean, as we were mentioning now, not so much the case, but they kind of just get tacked on. Sometimes they just sell games, um, but yeah, I mean, I was like you were saying, just completionist from pretty much the get go. But
yeah, yeah. The other weird thing too is that, and I don't know if this is something that just changed, but the way the rules used to be, like, or at least it felt like early on, is that if it was like a complete game, it would get a platinum, and if it was like a short, small little game, right, it would only get 100%, and that was the way it is. Like you never saw like like Linger in the Shadows, right? It was a quick 100% game with no platinum. That kind of game would never get a platinum. You know what I mean? Or at least that's what you would never see it get like that. So
Yes.
that was the weird thing, and obviously that's changed nowadays, where you have tons of games you can platinum, right? Like in under 10 minutes. I mean, it's just
Well,
insane.
not only that, it's kind of flip flopped because you'll have these much longer games that should have plats that are only 100%.
Oh,
Also,
absolutely. And it kind of, I know that one of the big ones was for me was like some of those Resident Evil games, right, that came out, and they only had 100% with no plat, and it's like, man, this is a full game. Like, you know what
yeah.
I mean? This is not 100%. Like, so, and it's just, it was crazy too. You know, um, I know one of the big ones was back in the day was, and then there was always that we thought, well, maybe if it's a disc game, it has to have a platinum. But then we got Truth or Lies, and that was a game that ended up costing $30 if you wanted 100%, and no one wanted to buy it, right? Because they're like, dude, I'm not gonna pay $30 for 100%. And that's where it's funny, like, so because there was never these quick and easy games, this is where the visual novel field, right, kind of entered the scene, like in a few years, right?
Yeah.
With started on the PS3, but then really exploded out on the Vita, because and that's where we do a lot of the guides, right, on PS3 imports. Like if you're a trophy hunter and you do Japan guides, I'm sure you definitely use that site for a lot of stuff. And that's and that was always the rare stuff, right? Where you're like, oh my god, I can get a plat under an hour. This is crazy, and it was just insane. Like
Yeah.
it was the only instance that you saw of fast platinum.
Do you remember what the first VN that came out was?
I don't know if it was the first, but I know that Melt Days of a Sanctuary, it was under an hour, and that was pretty early. So there
And
was
that
very.
was that like a $60 one at that point too when it came
It
out?
probably was because they were all very expensive, and I feel like the Japan market, like they know, but we were all trying to import it in for trophies. I feel like they caught on pretty fast, so you'd always see the prices scaled up pretty high. That was an early one. Another one was the When the Seagulls Cry. It was, I think it was like called like Witch or Rondo, something like that. It was basically a 50-hour platinum, but you could get it all by auto playing. There was no choices. So I don't know if you actually end up playing that or not. If you haven't, you should. But a lot of people look at it because it's 50 hours, and either if you have a turbo, you could turbo through the choices really fast, or turbo through the scenes really fast to get through it, and then you just have to sit in the game for 50 hours to get the platinum. Or you can let it autoplay, and I think it takes like 60 hours or something like that, so you can get it. So that was a very early one where people are like, "Oh my god, I can get a platinum doing nothing, like just letting it play." So it was just there's a lot of stuff like that. But even some of the visual novels, though, we had some cruel ones early on.
Yeah, I
There
mean,
was
like there was ones that were 15 hours that I was playing, and it was like worth it back then.
oh yeah.
Um,
Well, and
but
again, too, a lot of this stuff too, because a lot of us had multiple systems, is that the idea that I could be playing this while doing something else, right? I
yeah,
mean, I remember at one point that I was literally, I think I was running like 3 or 4 games at the same time because like 2 of them were more or less like auto run VNs, that have choices very separated apart, and then playing a real game on the side. I mean, it was incredible how many games that you could do, and it was just it was that point of trying to maximize your time, right, and do as much as you can because trophies were rare back then. Like I bet you like in the first 2 years in, people at the top only had like what, like 100, 150 platinums after many years,
yeah.
whereas now like 150 plats is less than a month. I mean,
You could do that in a day.
yeah, yeah, Dave probably really wanted to go for it.
But the yeah, I mean, I was saying that too. It was the plat count, like the separation between people and stuff too on leaderboards was if you were like half a level above somebody, it was you felt like really safe from being passed up. Maybe not a half level, maybe a level, because it's like 8 games. Wow, they still gotta play 8 games to catch up to me. Now it's they can do that in an hour. So
Oh, and it's just like it could be hidden or whatever. It's like that could just totally jump past you right at any moment. But you're right, like that's how it used to be. Is that you could go on vacation for a week, and what did you probably miss? Like maybe platinum a game or two. But that was the other thing though too, is that you know due to timing and stuff like that, that it was really rare. You know what I mean? To like sometimes you might go a week or two without a platinum because you're working on a game and you don't really have any easy stuff, so you're just what I mean, you're playing the normal 20-30 hour game, and just plugging along on it. And
Yeah,
that's just the way it was.
yeah, and it also made you be able to just play kind of more what you wanted too, if the leaderboard was something you were going for. Because I mean, nowadays, as I was saying in one of my other episodes, if you play like 100-hour RPG, it has such a minimal effect on your leaderboard rank right now that it does like it. You might as well just play it on another system or something, because you could get 400 plats in that amount of time that it took you for that. And I'm not saying like it's not worth playing, like it's fun to do, fun to get the plat and stuff like that, and if it's challenging and that adds to your experience, and it's you'd be more proud of that plat than I don't know, 1,000 top rated, or my name is Mayo. But um if leaderboards are your concern, that would it just at this day and age, it just doesn't even really. I feel like it doesn't even come into play really.
No,
But
it doesn't. I mean, like that's why in the beginning I could never be number one. Is that I was a big RPG fan, and any single time that I played an RPG, I would just fall in the standings because I just would want to play, and I didn't want to stop playing them. It was just that's what I enjoyed, right? And that's but I mean, that's you need to do what you enjoy, or you're gonna just drive yourself mad. And that's why I think a lot of people, especially a lot of people at the top that I talk, I think a lot of people are seemingly breaking their breaking point now because it's just the amount of easy games. Where before you would get an easy game or two, right? And it's like you would bust it out, and then you go back to playing the game you were playing.
yeah,
And it's like it was just all it was is just a little quick break. You know what I mean? To get your mind off of, oh, I could just bust this game out in an hour or two, and now I'm back on my way again, back to playing, mercenaries or something like that. And I think that's why it was more enjoyable in the beginning because you weren't seeing those people do that.
yeah, and I
So,
think
I mean, it's funny where you see a lot of it.
did you repeat that? You kind of cut out there.
Hate the rat
Yeah, you're still cutting out.
game nowadays.
I heard rat, and that's it.
Can you hear me? Did I?
I can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, like like that's the way the rat games were like now, but like right, I was just saying like that's where the digital novels were right in the past.
Yeah,
Is that
I mean, and also too, a lot of the kind of faster plats that a lot of people were doing were like movie-based games and TV shows, weird stuff like Saw and Green Lantern. You don't really see that nowadays either. Um,
that game was awful.
was Saw 2?
Prison Break. Oh my
Yeah,
god, those games were awful. It's amazing just going through the list and remembering some of these games and like how the funny thing is that a lot of these games you wouldn't even play today just because they were just that bad.
yeah.
There was just no
It's
way that
well, I mean, some of the quality of games now are pretty bad, but they're not. You have to put up with it for 15 hours. So
But that's what it is, though, right? Like, there's just a lot of games that that you spent 20, 30 hours getting the platinum just because that's what it was, right? But you would never do that nowadays because you just wouldn't have the time, or you would just, and that's what it is that you have such few time now that you really just got to be smart about when you want to play. Like, if you really care about getting up high in the rankings, and that's
yeah,
what.
that was,
I mean, now I try to take more of a break when I can, to play the games I want to keep my sanity. That's why I do a lot of Warframe. Like I try to make sure to play what really makes me happy.
yeah. That's kind of why I keep like going back and forth on just do I care anymore to keep up with it. Kind of a little bit of a chore, honestly. But um, let's see what else. So for those first 2 years, when did like uh I know one of the things I talked about was when I first got my PS3, the Move controller. bundle. When did that Move controller come out? Do you remember? Was that like
Ugh,
pretty?
that was a while before it came out too. Well, I know early on too that there wasn't really anything cool I think you could play that was worth it. So I don't think a lot of people had it, right? Because I don't think there was anything that like you were missing out. Like if you did it, you couldn't miss out on a 30-minute platinum, right? Like I don't think anything like that existed.
Well, there were Move games that had pretty fast plats, but I guess they weren't at that time then.
Yeah, I'm trying to look. What were some of the ones I'm trying to figure out in this? No idea what any of them. I barely remember the move on the PS3.
Really, it was only like 10 years ago.
Oh my god, I totally forgot that it was even on there.
Oh yeah,
I'm trying
because
to
we
through.
use them now with the VR and
Yeah, see, like the VR, yeah, like I get that, but I don't remember much for the PS3. I'm trying to think if there's any game. I'm trying to scan through my list right now to see if I see anything.
there was like
Nothing's.
iToy or something. I think maybe that was one of the first.
Oh, I did have one. I don't think I think I barely used it though. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't. It just like it was okay. It just wasn't great. Like when you.
Yeah, you're kind of cutting out again, unfortunately. We were going good for a half hour.
Play on the PS4 though, great. I mean, three was the Wonder Book.
Oh yeah, I mentioned those games. The Wonder Book and
What was the one that used the handheld?
the U Draw tablet.
U-Draw, yes. Oh yeah, U-Draw. Oh yeah, I remember that one. That was a good one.
Actually, that one was kind of fun. There was only
Yeah.
3 games for it, but
Yeah, but one of them was pretty tough though too, wasn't it? Like you had to
there
go
was like
through
a
a maintenance.
Marvel one too. Some superhero game, which was strange because they could use the tablet to do this superhero game. But I don't even remember what that game was like.
These Hawks. That game was. I love that game. I love fighter game.
Oh, fighting pilot games.
Yeah, fighting pilot games. I love that. I love that kind of too. But it's amazing though too because like I think that like looking at some of the easier games we played, like How to Train Your Dragon. I think that's like a 5 or 10 hour platinum or something like that. I don't know.
I think it's even longer than that.
Yeah, and it's like you would never play a game like that nowadays. Like an easy game like that would take like 15 hours or something.
I feel like they don't even make as many of those nowadays. Like,
Well,
I
no,
mean, it
yeah,
could just
probably
be
not.
the influx of just how many games we get and how many stacks of games we get, but it's like I feel like there was a lot more just movie-based games, television show-based games, and all that stuff. I mean, we got like I guess Jumanji a little while ago and things like that, but I mean, we had like Harry Potter movie games and all that too.
But the game that pissed me off the most was Demon Souls. Like that was like when that first came out, and I believe it came out like late 2009 or something like that, early 2010. And the first version that came out was, I believe, in like China. But if you got it from mainland China, it was actually a setting to turn it into English, right? So you could play it like normal. And I ended up playing the game, and it was so hard, and it was so much fun. But that's when they started coming out with those glitches where they're like, "Oh, you could duplicate the boss souls, and you could do it all in one playthrough." And it's like, dude, when I played it, like you had to do like 4 playthroughs of that game. Like it was just, and the additional playthroughs were so hard. The second and third, fourth playthrough were much harder than the first. It was just insane. It's oh my god. Some of these games though, but the good thing though. Like that's where you started boosting with people. I don't know. That was always and that was always beginning on where people would frown on you. Like that's what they would consider cheating, right? Like those oh, you boosted the game, but you got help from that. They're like, oh, that's cheating. You can't do that.
Well, you still
So,
have people with that feeling today, but
yeah,
nowadays you also have share play, and you can just have someone earn the trophies for you.
yeah, that's so weird. You know what I mean? Like, right? Like just doing like share play. Like it just, I don't know. I don't get it.
Well, speaking of multiplayer things, how was the co-op stuff? I mean, I know you do a lot more multiplayer stuff than I do. The co-op stuff more grindy and stuff like that too back in the day. I feel like there's not as many lists that have co-op stuff nowadays. I could be wrong, maybe it's because I just don't really look into that stuff, but um I feel like there was just more of it back in the day.
I mean, just lists. It's like just looking at all these games. It's like I felt like I did most of these like co-op, like Mercenaries 2. I think I remember you could do that co-op. There was Damnation. I was pretty positive you did that co-op. Lords of the Rings Conquest. That was co-op. I mean, these are all like games that are like within a few games of each other. So it's like you were just playing Ski-Doo Snowmobile Challenge. I believe there's some co-op stuff in that. Need for Speed Undercover. There was a lot of grind. But you know what I mean? Like Quantum of Solace, Pure. It's like non-stop, right? You're just playing games where it's like you're, playing with a bunch of different people. So, it was always like the best part of it, right? But
Yeah, I mean, when I first joined the trophy scene, I was pretty much a lone wolf, and I didn't co-op with really anybody other than there was a couple games. Oh, there was a co-op trophy or something, so I would go on some forum or someone or try to find somebody, and half the time they'd be a jerk. But uh, what was I gonna say here?
that's a boost with anybody outside of PS3 imports because like it is hard sometimes trying to find decent people. So you'd rather just boost with people you trust, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would much rather boost with friends and stuff like that as opposed to finding some random and trying to coordinate times because I had that issue where I was trying to coordinate times and then they would never show up or not contact me and it would be such a hassle. So were you uh like how early on did you get, I don't know, kind of a community and make friends on PlayStation to do these boosting things? And was it like right away you found somebody, or it was kind of?
It was much later on. In the beginning, it was generally with random people. I was kind of like what you were as a lone wolf. But when I made PS3 imports, and then you tell people, and it's like, oh hey, I'm gonna do this game. Oh hey, well I'll do the game with you too. You know what I mean? If you want to boost it, and that's early on PS3 imports. That was one of the big things is that you would make game threads, right? And being like, hey, I want to play this game. This needs like 8 people, and I think the big one at the time was Quantum of Solace, right? Because I think you needed like 6 or 8 people to walk out of a room. So we would all be like, who wants to play this? And let's see if we can lock this out with just PS3 imports members or something. It's no, I don't know if it was God.
I don't know. Yeah,
There,
that
there was
was.
another there was another game that was a golden eye type of game. I can't remember. Was it Is it Bloodstone or something like that?
I'm not the one to ask.
I'm drawing a blank. Maybe it was GoldenEye 7 Reloaded. Maybe that was it. But anyway, though, whenever you did it with people you knew, like I remember doing it with Bioshock, with people from PS3 imports and stuff like that. It just made it better. You know what I mean? Because you knew you could trust them. You didn't have to worry. Because that was always the other big thing too. You do it with randoms and being like, who's going last? No one wanted to go last because you're like, is anyone going to stick around? Or are people just going to bail out? Right? And
Yeah,
it was
with the
just
random
that awful.
people.
Yeah, it was
Exactly.
just that awful thing that you know what I mean that you had. That was the worst part that you had to deal with, and that's why I don't even remember the last time I boosted with people that I just didn't know. Just because of that. Like it's just not fun when you do something and then somebody screws you over.
Yeah.
It's always the worst part, of the trophy hunting.
So looking at your list, what were some of your favorite early trophy games?
I mean, Uncharted was good just because I don't really care for Uncharted now, but like when you played it the very first one, it was awesome. Like that was just a pretty cool game to do.
Yeah, I had the same feeling when I mean, that was my first PS3 game, and I was like, whoa, this looks so much like a movie. It's awesome. I mean, I don't
Yeah,
really play too many those type of games nowadays, but back then I was impressed.
there was Godfather 2. That was a very early on game too. That was awesome. And as you can see, it took us a long time to get a sequel to that game. You know, I mean, to get to Godfather 3, I think that just came out what a year ago, right in the PS4. So I mean, that's almost like 10 years apart, for those two titles. And that was always the cool thing is that because you were playing these games and you do it, that was like almost the best part of trophy hunting is that you would play these games and you were just looking at it. It's like, oh, it's like a 10 or 15 hour platinum, so I'm gonna play it. And you start playing it, it's like, dude, awesome game. Like this game is like I would have never done this without trophies, and that was the good part of trophy is that it would make you play these games, and you're like, dude, this game is just absolutely phenomenal. And there was just a lot of them that were like that, right? And that's the part that I miss is that we've kind of gotten away from that. And that was
Yeah,
like to me the big one I think was that I had played was Bayonetta. I would have never played that game normally, and then you just start playing it, and you're like, dude, this game is awesome. Like this is amazing. I can't believe I might not even play this. And of course, sometimes it goes the other way, but more times than not, you know what I mean. It just felt like you were doing cool stuff like that.
yeah. I mean, right now
Like
it's.
Darksiders was another one very early on.
Oh yeah,
That
I
was a
remember
great
that.
game. Yeah, like that was very early 2010. Something like that. That was an awesome game that I would have never played. Normally.
But yeah, I mean, that was something I wasn't thinking of too, which is interesting because nowadays I feel like it's more so trophies turn me off from games as opposed to get me to try new ones. Because a lot of the stuff, trophy wise, is just kind of the same generic shell of, I don't know, follow this video guide for this point and click, or follow this walkthrough for some first person horror game, or um, this generic 2D platformer setup with nothing special about it. And as opposed to, I don't know, trying new genres or things that are unique and whatnot.
And that's what you miss nowadays, right? Because of that. I know. I'm trying to think. Army of Two. That game was so much fun. I did that co-op twice. That game was a blast the whole time. It's just awesome. It just but that's the problem though, right? Is that you don't really have time for these trophies, but at the same time too, you feel like the developers are trying to make stuff too easy because they feel like, oh well, if you make it too hard, it might turn off some people buying it. So there really sometimes isn't a lot of incentive for developers to make these trophies too hard if it turns people off, right? But at the same time, if you make it too easy, no one's going to complain about that and not buy the game because it's too easy. In fact, you'd argue that maybe some more people would buy it because it's too easy. And we are talking about like trophies are probably like 5% of the community, maybe if that, right? But still, it's still a percentage, and it's still You're still talking about what we talked about is like what like these trophies that you have to put in anyway. I don't know. Maybe it could just be me. I feel like there's no incentive to make them too hard anymore, and I feel like developers have kind of caught on to that.
Well, I feel like even the big budget games and stuff too are just easier. And actually, it could be a way for them to advertise a bit too. Because if you got a bunch of people bragging about their, I don't know, Ghost of Tsushima plat or their Spider Man plat or whatever, you got like tons more posts on social medias of these people's plat images and screenshots being, oh, I got the plat, oh, I got the plat. And it just spreads the word even further um, of that.
How many games have you seen ruined because you can't get 100% or the platinum because it's glitched, right? That was always one of the big ones for me was Nailed. Where you couldn't even platinum the game unless you until the DLC come out and you had to buy the DLC to be able to platinum. It was insane, and you still couldn't even get 100% in the game. It's still
Yeah, that's one thing I was saying too when I was if I started early on, there would have been a chance, much higher chance that I've had something on my list that's not possible at this
Absolutely, but you
point.
were doing a lot of catch up, right? Like, so it's like you avoided a lot of the minefields like some of us hit, right? Like, and that's
Rambo.
yeah, like I feel like I got hit with every single one of them. Like, I don't think I could have gotten like any worse luck. I mean, just looking at some of mine, it just and some of them I missed due to timing. Like, I didn't get that one DLC from that because it went offline. And that, like stuff like that. It's my fault, right? High velocity bowling, like I missed the trophy on that. But then it's like, Rambo, right? Like, nailed, burn zombie burn. I mean, like, I just constantly just kept getting hit with this shit. It was just awful. Like, I felt like I just had the worst luck in the world. That's why I at least like PSN trophy leaders, where they will actually mark your game as 100% complete if you have every single trophy except for the ones that are very impossible to get. And I always kind of like that feature because it was always annoying to see those games on my list where you're like, I can't even get 100% of that game, man.
Yeah, that's another thing. Another thing I guess we could mention. When did leaderboard sites come around? I mean, it couldn't have been right the day trophies came out, was it? Um,
It was so funny because since there wasn't really a leaderboard in the beginning, I can't remember what this guy's name was, but he would always say, "Oh, I got the platinum for this game. Oh, I got 100% of this game." And as soon as the leaderboards came out, they're like, "Oh, I'm just kidding, dude. I didn't have any of these games." Because people would just lie and say they had them, but once the leaderboards came out, which I believe the first one was like, I can't remember. It began with an M. I can't remember what it was. I don't know if were you around to see it at that point?
I
It
don't
was
remember any
before.
leaderboard than M. First one I saw was profiles.
You don't remember your gamer cards?
No.
Okay, that was before PSN profile gamer card. There was one before your gamer card too, and it began with an M, and I can't think of what it was. But it was awesome. You're like, oh my god, you could see them, the leaderboards, and it was really cool at first. And then the hacking scene started to roll in, you know what I mean? And it's like, well, what happens with them, right? Like, it's like, what's going on? Like, there's some of these people that are just doing messed up stuff, right? And it's
Yeah,
like,
that's what I was trying to. I had that one series that I'm doing of videos of why, I don't know, kind of unfair advantages of people on the leaderboards and why they're kind of not, I don't know, the greatest comparison. You shouldn't compare yourself to the people high up at the top or whatever. Some of the people are just right around you because, they might not be doing, they might be doing things you don't realize and all this stuff. So,
and that's the thing is that, I mean, and that was what they started doing to track, right? Like, to try to prevent some of that stuff, but it was always a gray area because it's like a lot of people felt like, well, this feels like something Sony should be doing, right? Like, why are we doing Sony's job? Like, Sony should be monitoring their own product, but it kind of gets back to what we were talking about earlier, where Sony just doesn't care about trophies, right? Like, that's where, we thought that a lot of them, that they would step up, but like when we saw these people would just blatantly cheat, and it's just like, oh wow, like you started to realize, I think in like 2011, 2012, you're like, okay, Sony like just truly does not care, like they just don't care, and you just felt like, okay, I guess we're on our own because they don't care about it.
yeah, I mean, they might mention it like. Actually, I don't even know in their press conferences do I even hear them mentioning things. I mean, if there's some feature related to trophies, they'll say that. But other than that, that's pretty much it. From what I hear trophy
All the
wise
time.
from them.
Yeah, well, you see these people on the leaderboards appear all the time, right? And they have like 5,000 platinums or something like that. Well, it's like we all know they cheated, but like obviously they're appearing and they're still playing, so Sony doesn't care, right, about any of those. And those are people that are just absolutely blatantly cheating. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But again, like they just don't even care about that either. It's just, I wish they would care more about it, like Microsoft does. That's the one thing that always made me jealous of them. Is that, man, it just seems like, I guess they don't know because I don't have an Xbox, but it just seems like they care more.
Yeah. Um Was there anything else you want to talk about from like the first few years of trophies? Any topics you can think of?
And the one thing, but I'd say more the community, it was funny, but a lot of people couldn't message me very early on. I used to have everyone blocked. Like, unless you were on my friends list, you could not send me a friends request, you could not send me a message. And there used to be, I would say, like pre 2012, 13, like you would just get a lot of hate. Like, it was just like nonstop, like, you're a loser, kind of stuff. So I blocked it because it's like, dude, like, whatever, I'm not going to listen to these people. No. But everyone on the top of the leaderboard at the time, from what I remember, is that they were all getting the same thing. Like Doc 360, like he was the number one guy for like 4 or 5 years. And he would get tons, all the time. So it was funny. And then just randomly at one point, I remember playing a co-op game, and they're like, "Yeah, I tried to invite you, but you blocked." And I was like, you know what? Maybe I should just unblock this. I think it was like 5, 6 years ago or something like that. I was like, you know what? I'll just unblock it and see what happens. And like everyone was super nice. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'd say like about 10% of the stuff was nice early on, and now I feel like it's like 5 or 10% is the hate now. You know what I mean? And it's just kind of nice. You know what I mean? That that part of it was at least something positive that's come out lately. Is I feel like people are more positive than they were in the past. So
Yeah. I mean, I don't.
you wouldn't enjoy that early on. It was not that part of it was not. It seems like.
I wasn't that high up early on, so it didn't really. I never got much hate.
Some people took it more personally. I mean, personally, I don't really care. So like, it's like, dude, you don't even like. So I doesn't even bother me. But I know a lot of other people took it more personally.
Yeah, I mean, I got a little bit at times. And maybe I'll go into some of these stories too. But I have developed a thicker skin, a little bit
You have to.
from some of this stuff. But
Oh, I remember. I remember like some of the stuff that and like some of them would just get you to crack up. I'm sure you got some good stories too, and they'd be like, "Dude, you played Demon Souls 3 times. You're a hacker. There's no way it could appear more than one time on your list or something like that." And you just sit there dying. You know what I mean? But you get some really funny ones too, where it's like, "Hey, I noticed you got the Grand Theft Auto 4 plat. If I give you $20, will you do it for me?" It's
yeah,
like,
I've gotten my share of those. I've
it's like
gotten
it's a 300-hour game, but sure, buddy. Yeah, I'll do it for $20.
I've gotten my share of oh, you unlock these trophies in the same game, like 1 second apart. You must be hacking. Well, it's like for completing the game and completing the game on hard, they kind of pop at the same time. Well, I don't know what you're questioning here, but
Well, sound shapes, that was a big one when that came out, where like you
oh
get
yeah, the
accused
auto
of people
pops.
hacking. Yeah, they're like, dude, he's hacking. Look, you can't platinum this game in 9 seconds. And it's like, dude, it's an auto pop. Oh, it's funny, now thinking about this, there was a very early game that, so, I always tell people, I always feel bad for the people that did the hacks for Fuel and SOCOM, because it was early on, and the thing is that was before, and kind of like we were talking about, like when leaderboards appeared. Well, some of the people that did that was before leaderboards appeared, and I always kind of felt bad for them, because it's like, dude, they had no idea what was going to become of this stuff, right? And I always thought it was a little unfair, because it's like, like maybe we should put the brakes on some of these people that had no idea what would happen. But I remember that, and luckily, I never had the curiosity to do that kind of stuff. But it's funny because the one game that I did do that did have controversy around it at the time was, I don't know if you played it, was Buzz Quiz TV. And
No.
so basically, no wait, it wasn't Buzz Quiz TV. It was one of those Buzz games. And basically what it was is, actually I think pretty sure it's Buzz Quiz TV, is that by manipulating the patches, you could get most of the trophies just to auto pop. And I believe you only had to earn 3 trophies actually legit. So like if you go in and you like download the patch, right, and then you delete the patch and then you play it without the patch or something like that, and then people are like, oh yeah, but all the trophies popping is cheating, and it's like, yeah, but all I did is you delete the patch and then you reinstall it, right? So it's not cheating, right? You're just manipulating the game, which I guess nowadays, right, like that kind of stuff is way more commonplace, right? Like the glitches and bugs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But back then, there was nothing like that. So when it came out, like everyone was like, dude, I'm not gonna play that. It just feels wrong, right? You know what I mean? It just, it was one of those weird ones at the time where even I felt bad about it, and I was like, oh man, maybe I shouldn't have done it. But the leaderboards came out. I think it was your gamer cards was the main one around, and it's like, yeah, that's not cheating, guys. Like that's you're not using software to unlock it. It's deleting a patch and then you're reinstalling it. So I think that was always the issue with, from what I remember from Fuel and SOCOM, is that basically you get all the trophies by using someone else's save, but you didn't need to actually use software. I think so. Like just by loading it up, you could because you can't load anyone's save nowadays, right? It'll say this is not your save, you can't play this. But apparently for those two games you couldn't. So I don't know, and that's again why I always felt bad for those people, right? Because it's like they probably just tried it out of curiosity, being like, "Oh no, way, this is gonna work. Oh, it works, right? Like that's crazy."
Yeah.
I mean, dude, like it was just—it's funny. Like if you go to the leaderboards, it's like you just see like thousands of people that hack those games. I mean, it was just ridiculous. Which is why most of the leaderboards started making rules where you gotta have like over 5 hack games. Where like I think your gamer card said 5, you need 5 games to do it, to try to give them a buffer to be like, okay, we'll allow you to screw up a few times because you didn't know what leaderboards were gonna be, right? But at the same time too, it's like if you're doing it too much, okay, you gotta.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're coming up on like an hour here. I think we're gonna probably wrap it up, unless you got some more interesting topics you could think of.
It's hard though. You know what I mean? It's there's a lot of stuff, but not much anymore that I can think of. So
Probably think of it as soon as we get off here.
that's usually how it works.
Yeah. So do you wanna give your contact info, or not like contact info, but I mean I know you got a Twitter and stuff if you wanna.
Yeah, that's it. I don't do the social media thing. Twitter is my only thing. It's at Roughdawg4. If that's the only time that I ever do any kind of reach out or response. I know a lot of the other people, like you do a lot of social media. I just never really got into it.
Not too much. I've been trying to do a little bit more, but I kind of had a few bad experiences with the social medias, so
The bad things, get you down. Like, look, there's always going to be some bad people, but I don't know. I guess at least for Twitter so far, for me, like I feel like it's overwhelmingly positive. If it was all negative or mostly negative, I probably would have quit it a long time ago. But I don't know. Like, but it's kind of cool too because you get to see some people that might follow your work, right? That don't. And I'm assuming because you do streaming, right? Like, it's a way for some of those people to reach out to you and maybe say, hey, like I appreciate what you're doing, right? Keep it up.
Yeah, so that was the sort of early years of trophies from someone a little more expertise than I have. So, with that being said, everybody have a good night, good morning, enjoy your games. Thanks for watching, and hopefully see you again next time. Goodbye, everybody.